for later.
Okay.
But this is good. Now I'll get onto Facebook. It takes a couple of seconds to make sure that it's all. I'll call it special.
There, Sari.
Pardon me?
It's pretty dark there.
I know. I guess it's because it's like evening. Is that better?
Yeah,
that's good. Yeah. Special event.
Yeah, you're a special event, weren't you?
All right, so I'm going to start. I'm going to share, go live, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
So it appears that we are live on Facebook, and I always like to make sure, because you never know. Facebook is one of those, fun and wonderful things that when it works, it's fabulous, and technology in general, really. So let me just make sure that we are live. Yes, we are live on the page, which is great. So welcome everybody. And for those of you who are currently doing the Fertility Challenge, what an amazing job that you are doing. And I cannot congratulate you enough, because I've been looking at all of those tasks going, oh my goodness, how can I keep up? So today I thought that we would do something a little bit different and a little bit exciting for me anyway, because, and hopefully for you too, because we decided that it would be a great idea. And I've asked the wonderful Sari and Charles to come in and tell us a little bit about their story. They one time back at some point were standing in your shoes exactly where you are now, and doing the Fertility Challenge. And now, as you can see, we've kind of transmuted into 3 pieces rather than just 2. So, that's always a wonderful little addition. And Sybil is, how old is she now, Sari? She's
6 months.
6 months. So, oh my goodness, how exciting. And Charles, thank you so much for also being here and helping to share, the beautiful journey that you guys have been through. And I mean, I know that before we started working together, there was quite a lot, and I'm not going to preempt anymore. I would love to hear from you guys and to share a little bit about your story and, what you guys have been through. And for the people who are watching on, and I'm going to make sure that I look at the video, because if people want to ask questions and want to, are you guys okay with taking questions?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure.
So if people want to ask questions, they can put it into the comments, and we can, I can let you know what the questions are, and we can go from there. So tell us a little bit about how this whole thing started for you guys, the before and after, so to speak. Before Gabriela, after Gabriela.
Well, before Gabriela, we had been married for probably, I don't know, just over a year, and we thought, let's start trying to have a baby. And it took us about a year, and nothing was happening. And so we went and saw our local doctor, and she said, well, you know what? I'm going to send you guys right for a recommendation to our fertility clinic, and they can do some testing. In the meantime, we'll do just a little bit of general testing here that I can do. And so she sent me for just a couple of things, some blood work, and I think an ultrasound, and everything came back, and she said, it looks pretty good, but I've got your referral into the fertility specialist. So you'll just have to wait to hear from the call for them. So meanwhile, we were waiting, and we hadn't really made a lot of changes or anything. I wasn't super concerned yet. And then we got a positive pregnancy test. So we thought, great, we don't have to see the fertility specialist. They even called, I think, the week of the positive, and I was like, nope, cancel the appointment. I've got a positive, we're good to go. And
I'll throw in some funny things. So when we got that that call from the fertility specialist, Sari's sister was staying with us for a couple of days, and she's young. Like I think she was probably 11 or 10. So the fertility specialist called us and said, "We'd like to book a time for you to come in." And Sari's sister was standing there, and Sari said out loud on the phone in front of her sister, "Oh, actually, I have a positive pregnancy test, so we're not going to need the appointment." And I looked at her and I looked at her sister, because no
It's
one
like
had
freaking
known.
out.
Yeah, no one knew that we were trying at this point, and I was like, "Oh, she's going to tell everyone." And we were like, yeah, so it started out kind of funny, and I was like, after she got off the phone, I was like, she was just kidding. It was a joke. She's not pregnant. And
She
then
really isn't. Like it's not
yeah,
happening.
so yeah, you can carry on there. Sorry for butting in.
Okay. Yeah. So we got our positive pregnancy test, and then everything was going great. And at 8 weeks, we went in for an ultrasound, and that's when they said they didn't see an actual. I guess they only saw a fetal pole, but they didn't see a heartbeat. So being the first time, we didn't really know what that meant, because they didn't tell us whether that meant we were going to miscarry. They gave us there was no support, no answers, no directions. And I remember asking the tech, and I was like, "What does that mean?" And she's like, "Well, I can't say." And I was like, "Okay, well, what does that mean?" And so at that point, we were pretty like distraught, or at least I was. And I remember Charles was trying to be very positive. And because they just said, "You need to come back in 2 weeks because it could be too early." And I had been a believer in tracking my cycle. That was just something that I had been doing. And so I was like, well, I know I'm not wrong. Like, I know where I'm supposed to be at. And so I thought, well, the body is somewhat a mystery. So maybe they're right. Like maybe my dates are off and it's just too early. But deep down, I just kind of knew that it wasn't right. You just kind of get that.
It's that sense, isn't it, that you have. And it's interesting because often I hear people say that to me. It's like, I knew I was pregnant, or I knew that I had miscarriage, or, and at that time, it's the time, especially when it's the first time, you really feel like, okay, well, but what does this mean? Does it mean that I can never have a baby? Does it mean, there's so many questions that pop up. So yeah, it's quite challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. So then we kind of had a two week period of just like waiting until we could go for that second ultrasound. And we did go for the second ultrasound. And then again, they still couldn't confirm whether I was going to miscarry, but I ended up miscarrying the next day after that second ultrasound, which was at about 13 weeks by that point. And yeah, and that was like a really crushing experience, because no one not that you should be prepared for that, but no one says that could happen. You hear about it, but it's like it's a whole nother realm, and you're very detached from it. Like you don't think that can happen to you, and you don't think that you're ever going to have issues or struggles or problems.
For sure.
And yeah, so that was very, like, I'd say soul crushing. And then you don't really, maybe some people talk to people, but we didn't really talk to anybody. We did tell our family. We just said at that time we didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that was the very first miscarriage, right?
Yeah.
And how did it affect you, Charles? Like, what were the things that were going through your mind at that point?
To be honest, I guess it didn't affect me as much as it did Sari. I kind of just felt my role was to just be there for her, mostly because I didn't really understand a whole lot what was going on. Like you said, I didn't know, what that meant for the future, or really the present. What effects would come from that, be it physical or emotional. I didn't really know. It was really the second miscarriage that that really took hold of me. But yeah, we can.
And how did that happen? I mean, what happened? What happened next, I guess?
After that, I let my doctor know, and she put in the referral again to the fertility specialist, and they had a cancellation, so they were able to get us in sooner than usual. And we were really hopeful because we had continued to try, because when I'd seen my doctor, she said, you know, just kind of give it a month, and then when you feel ready, go ahead. But nothing had happened. And so we went into...
And actually, I want to interject there for one little moment, because, you know, it's really important that people realize one critical thing, that by the time you've reached 12 weeks gestation, you know, you're essentially in your second trimester, which means that the body has gone through immense changes in hormonal levels, in uterine lining, in a whole lot of different ways it has changed. And it takes time for it to get back to baseline, for you to be able to then have the opportunity to not only try and to hopefully be successful in a subsequent cycle, but to be able to have the healthiest possible baby too. You know, and a lot of times when people are just told, oh yeah, no, don't worry about it, just keep trying, or just go again, we actually get into a situation where we're missing out on that ability that the body has, but also needs to take the time from a biochemical standpoint to regain its balance and to regain the level in the place where it can actually really go again and hopefully be successful the next time around. So in the clinic, for example, we don't recommend, if somebody has had a miscarriage at a third trimester miscarriage, or even a second trimester miscarriage, or even a late first trimester, we actually recommend people taking a break for at least 4 months to really get their bodies back to where it needs to be before trying again, so that way we can have a better chance, hopefully, by also understanding what else is playing a role and what else has happened for that miscarriage to occur, to be able to then try again and hopefully be successful in a second attempt. Because sometimes there are things as well that you don't see and that you don't find out about what's going on in the body until you've had a miscarriage and we have the opportunity to test at that particular point. Because, for example, in your case, you know, one of the things, and I won't spoil the story, I want you to continue and tell us, but, you know, there were certain things that we were able to really realize and find out only because of that reason. And so having that time and that ability is really very important.
Yeah.
So then that was the second miscarriage, and then what happened?
Yeah, so we were at the fertility specialist, and he sent us for testing, and we got that done. And my tests all came back normal, within range, normal range. And then Charles...
Which we know what that means. That could mean anything, right? Like it could mean the difference between the sun and you know, the universe. So yeah.
Who knows if I was on the low end or the high end of that, you know, spectrum. But and then Charles, his morphology was a little bit low for his sperm count, and so the doctor had just prescribed I think 3 supplements, he said, and I was actually surprised he said supplements, because I just didn't think that I would hear that. And
well, I mean, he gave that, I guess, diagnosis, if you want to call it that, and then that was kind of it. But then we said, like, is there something we can do about this? Like, is there something we can change or add or what have you? And it took a little bit of prodding for us to say, or for him to say, there's a few supplements that you can try, right? And so it was kind of surprising that, you know, he was just basically gonna just let us go, and that was that, right? So
yeah, he prescribed me clomiphene, and he prescribed enough, I think, for 3 prescriptions, so for 3 months. And he just said, like, there might be some side effects, and we asked questions, and we read the sheet, and we thought, well, okay, we'll give this a try. And I did 1 round of clomiphene and I felt so uncomfortable.
Mm.
I was just like,
Mm.
no, this is not gonna work for us. It just didn't feel right with my body, and I felt like my ovaries were just gonna like come outside of my body. That's what I kind of
Like
felt.
completely overreacting to this medication. So yeah.
Yeah, so we had a follow-up appointment, but it was a few months after, and we had gotten pregnant, and we experienced during that time that we were seeing the fertilities, the doctor, and 2 miscarriages. So that had brought it to 3, and because I was at 3 miscarriages, then he said, okay, well now you're in a different category. He said, like,
Yeah.
qualified
Which
for
is
more.
it. Yeah, it's so crazy, isn't it? I mean, it never ceases to amaze me how in standard therapy, and the reason that it is because it's ultimately the cost of doing these further interventions to understand is essentially lower than not doing it. And so what happens is that, well, you know, most women will conceive eventually and will keep a pregnancy to term eventually. The problem is that most women who have experienced 1 miscarriage does not want to experience a second or a third. But what happens is that in standard therapy and just in general, this happens in healthcare systems around the world, unfortunately, there's just no follow-up, there's no further testing until you've had at least 3 miscarriages. And even then, that's dependent on the doctor seeing you. Whereas I personally feel like that's just not acceptable. If I was a patient in that situation, I wouldn't want to have to wait to have 3 miscarriages before something was done. So in the program, we really take a very, very proactive approach. But what also happens, and this is really an interesting thing that most people don't get, which is this whole idea that there isn't one reason why you have a miscarriage, you know, and a miscarriage really is, it occurs and really is a product, so to speak, of 2 prospective parents, not just 1. So there's all of this extra layering that we need to take into consideration when we're wanting to not only have a conception, but also take a healthy pregnancy to term that doesn't get taken into account. But, you know, and I mean, I can only imagine, Sari, for you, you know, going through your 3rd miscarriage, being told, oh, now finally we can do some tests. You're probably thinking, couldn't we have done that like three goes ago? But yeah, it's a bit crazy.
Yeah, no, we were pretty upset, and we weren't the kind of people who weren't aware of alternative you know, approaches. And so, but of course you don't ever go down that journey once, like, I mean, like more than once, right? Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah. In a sense, and you don't go into it knowing what you're supposed to ask or what you're supposed to do. You're just going into it blindly, really, and there's not a lot of people even telling you what you should be looking for or asking. So when we went for that appointment, he said, well, we'll send you for more testing, and that test all came back normal. And he said, well, I would recommend IUI. And Charles and I both looked at each other and we're just like, okay,
what's the point of that?
Yeah, I can get pregnant. Why would I pay money to get pregnant?
Yeah, it's, you know, that is the funniest thing that it never ceases to amaze me when patients say, oh, you know, I've had X number of miscarriages, my doctor has recommended IVF, and I'm like, okay, or IUI, to get pregnant, not to do any further investigations, but just to get pregnant. I'm like, but you understand that you can actually get pregnant, you know, and that just getting pregnant doesn't give us a baby at the end of the day, that there are obviously factors that need to be taken into consideration. And Charles, what about you at this stage? You know what, we're 3 pregnancies down, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the doctor, I wasn't really thrilled with him saying we're a good candidate for IUI or IVF. I mean, Canada does have socialized healthcare, but when it comes to fertility, that's not part of the package. Like that's all paid for by you privately. So there are some, like the very first screenings and tests are are paid for, but then after that it's on you. And I thought the same thing, why would we pay, $800 per session for IUI, or up to $20,000 Canadian for IVF, when we can get pregnant? So essentially it would be, $20,000 for IVF, and then we have another miscarriage, and then $20,000 for IVF again and have another miscarriage. Like, I was at the point where I just I wasn't excited about pregnancy anymore. I wasn't. If Sari told me she was pregnant, the third time for sure, it definitely started where I was just like, well, okay. I mean, this is not exciting. This is more, I'm afraid of what's next, right? And not afraid of becoming a father or having a family. I was afraid of another miscarriage, and coming home from work. I work in Northern Canada. I'm never closer than an 8-hour drive from home, and there's no airports where I work. So I was at the point where I didn't want to come home to hear that, or have my wife call me and say she had a miscarriage, and I was going to go home, and it was just, my days off would just be us, kind of sitting on the couch and just being depressed and crying and wondering about our future, right? It was a terrible, dark time. Like, it got worse too, but before it got better, right? So, but
so what
as for
next?
You can go ahead there, Sari.
So at that point, we decided to kind of give the fertility doctor a break. And I had booked an appointment with the local naturopath that I had seen prior for just different issues. And then Charles had been doing some Googling, and he had come across an acupuncturist here in our city that does fertility acupuncture. And I'd never been for acupuncture before. And so I was a little nervous about that. And he was really adamant about me trying it and going. And I was just like, okay, well, you try sticking needles in your body all over.
You go, feel free.
Yeah. But finally, we were at that point where we were desperate. We were looking for, we would try, everything and anything. So we went for acupuncture, and honestly, like, I don't know, like it didn't help essentially, but the lady who was doing my acupuncture is just a phenomenal soul. And if anything, she just was a good therapist for me.
Yeah, amazing.
It was therapy, like it was very therapeutic. And so I'm glad that I found her, and I'm glad that I did go, because if anything, it just helped to kind of ease the journey. And and so we did that. And then we were seeing our naturopath, and she had us on a regime. She encouraged us to take a break, but she didn't say take a break. She just said you should consider it. And when you're in the thick of it, all you're thinking about is how much time, how long is it going to take. And when somebody suggests a break, you're like, well, no, we're not going to take a break. Like,
that's not going to happen.
Yeah, and you kind of get into this cycle where you're just spinning, and you're spinning out of control, but you feel like you're in control, but you're really spinning out of control. And so you get into the cycle of trying to conceive, and you're reading everything, and you're just getting very consumed with it. And I think,
and very confused too, right? Because I mean, one person says take this, the other one says take that, the other one says Amazonian monkey pig, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you're just like, oh my god, like, what do I even do here? So
yeah, and so we were doing some things, and they were good things. And we experienced 2 miscarriages while we were seeing her. And she kind of sat back at the last one, and she said, she's like, I don't know what else to do. She's like, I've talked to some of my colleagues who I went to school with. I've reached out to them. I haven't really heard anything new that I haven't tried. And so she just said, like, I don't know if I can help you. And at that point, I was like freaking out. And I can't remember, were we at that appointment together, Charles? And she said that? Like, or was it
With
just
Michaela?
no, with
Oh no, this was with the naturopath.
yeah, with the
Yeah, I was there, yeah.
yeah. And I think it was kind of like a sinking feeling for both of us, because we felt like, well, we've seen the our medical doctor, we've seen our regular doctor, we did acupuncture, now we're seeing the naturopath. Like, we're gonna have to go, at this point I was like, we're gonna have to go out of province or out of country. Because there's only 3 major cities in the province that we live in, and I'd utilized 2 of them, you know, for doctors and things.
So there was a feeling of running out of options alongside the whole, that whole, and by this stage, were you up to 4 miscarriages?
5.
Or 5? 5 miscarriages.
Yeah.
Right.
And we hadn't really been open with a lot of our friends and family. There was maybe a couple of friends, but we hadn't been completely open. Like, they knew we were struggling, but we're very, I guess, private and closed off. And I think there was a lot of emotions there. So we just didn't, and we didn't know how to deal with those emotions either.
Yeah, for sure.
So we didn't open up a lot. And I think, we were in a pretty dark place at that point, because I think there was a lot of like confusion, anger, frustration, and then just, there's not a lot of support for those kinds of things. And
absolutely. And especially, for the couple as well. And I imagine that for you, Charles, it would have been a whole nother, kettle of fish, so to speak, that not only you were going through this, but you were also going through this. And what support did you get? I wonder, from in the whole process.
Yeah, it was, I didn't know what to do. I mean, Sari has always been kind of she's taken a more natural, holistic approach to life and her health and healthy eating and things like that, where she balances
where you needed
me
to be
out,
coached
right?
a little bit more.
Yeah, I needed some definite coaching and things like that. So a lot of this was pretty foreign to me. But yeah, we were desperate. We didn't know what to do. We were just kind of grasping at straws at this point, right?
Yeah.
And then
there
what
was
happened?
we did have, I think, one more appointment with our fertility specialist in Canada here, and he essentially just said, there's nothing more we can do for you other than IVF or IUI. He said essentially it's an explained infertility, and we had been looking online about why miscarriages happen, things like that. We came across a doctor who did some studying on natural killer cells, and he talked about some of the ways that his patients overcame that, and some of the things he did for them, et cetera, et cetera. So I had asked the fertility specialist that. I was away working at the time, and so this was like a kind of a Zoom call. It was before COVID, so not Zoom, but
not telemedicine friendly.
Yeah, it was video, and I asked him. I said, so we've been looking up some things about natural killer cells and the effect that it has on pregnancy and miscarriage and things like that. And I said, would you test for that? And he kind of laughed in our face. Yeah, he actually laughed and
Oh, wow.
and said, no, that's essentially, it's a joke, and we don't do that in Canada because it's not proven, or you know, we don't find any
There's not enough
anything
research.
coming from it. Yeah, there's not enough research from it in Canada and things like
Yeah.
that. So that was, I wrote him off there. I just said, no, this is not for us, this clinic
Yeah.
or this doctor. And yeah, we carried on our journey.
So then what was the next little piece of the adventure?
Well, seeing as my naturopath here couldn't help us, I was like, well, I have to find somebody, because I refused to just accept that was the end. And so then I was Googling. I would remember I'd spend evenings just Googling and reading different doctors, a lot of them in the state, but they weren't like, it wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't exactly what I was looking for. A lot of it was still around IUI or IVF.
Yeah.
And I'd heard about a doctor in New York who did the natural killer.
People didn't like that. Yeah.
No.
It's like, no.
And then across your website, the Natural Fertility Breakthrough. And I was like, oh, this looks interesting. So I was reading it, and I don't even remember what I typed into Google to come across it. I just remember I'd never come across it before. And all of a sudden it was just there. And then I was reading the testimonials, and I was like, wow, I think this is kind of, yeah, I think this is kind
I
of
agree.
this is what I want. I liked that there was a natural approach to it, but then if necessary, you know, the use of modern medicine was there, and like it was a whole approach and not just one-sided. And so I told Charles about it, and I think I sent him the website, and yeah, I know.
I'm protesting.
I'm gonna start talking now. And I actually called to set up the phone consult, or sent an email, I can't remember, but I did have a phone call from your clinic, and they said, well, have you joined the fertility challenge?
Yeah.
Well, what is that?
What is that?
I just looked at you on Facebook.
That. Why do I need more of that?
And she said, well, you should join. We just started, or we're starting in 24 hours, I think it was. And Charles was away working, and he's like, so show me what to do. And so I went on and I joined, and I was like, okay. And at that point, I basically sat on the couch, I felt like, for the whole 12 days. I was working, but I would come home from work and I would log on and I would watch the videos, that day's video, and do the required task of the day. And 100% all in. Like from the moment it started, there wasn't an ounce of me that was like, oh, this is crazy. Every time I would call Charles and be like, this is what's happening. This is what we're doing.
And Charles is like, oh my God, she's obsessed. What's happening? Who's taking over my wife?
Yeah, she said that she sent me the website before the challenge. I don't think that's true, but so I came home while I was away at work, and she was in the thick of the fertility challenge. And because I was away at work, I wasn't able to take part as much, right? So I just remember just being bombarded with articles and videos and links.
Like, watch this, and look at this.
Yeah, it's like constantly. And I was like, okay, this is over the top. And then I came home, and it was on the day where, you know, you get rid of the chemicals and plastics.
Yeah, so that's day one.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So yeah. Okay. So I remember, no, I didn't come home yet, but I was home a couple days later, and she had all
And
this
she had
stuff
already
in a
started.
pile. Like everything was just ready to be thrown in the garbage. Just all of this stuff, like all of our containers, all of our cleaning supplies, all of our like nice colognes and
Bless your
all this
heart.
stuff. And I was like, what is going on here? So we have to replace all this stuff now. And and then the next couple
And
days
that Corvette is just getting
Yeah.
further and further and further away.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. So, and then every day there's Amazon packages showing up with new glass bottles and new natural cleaning supplies, and I'm just being bombarded with the fertility challenge. And I thought it was a little crazy, a little over the top for sure, but
I love it. I love your honesty, Charles, you know, because most guys feel that way, but they won't say it. At least not in the beginning, you know? They were just kind of like, and I'm sure, and look, people would say, I'm laughing out loud over here, exactly how my husband has reacted, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah, and then the tables got turned on me, like, okay, now you got to clean up your diet. Now you got to change the shampoos and the soaps that you're using, and no more cologne and no more air fresheners and you know, things like that. And I was like, okay. I was like, I think there was definitely one cologne that I said we can't
That
get
you
rid
hid
of.
away, that you hid
Yeah.
under the.
So we still have it, and to this day I haven't sprayed it once, and it's been a couple of years now, I guess. So I actually can't stand the smell of any sort of perfumes or air fresheners or colognes or anything like that now. And it's just kind of crazy how your body just changes, right? It's so blind to the nasty stuff that's around you all the time.
Absolutely. And, you know, I mean, if you have a look, you know, in terms of how sperm is affected and in terms of how egg quality is affected by these, because they're all endocrine disruptors, right? So what happens is that the things in our environment, the exposures that we face, are going to have an impact on our ability to conceive, ability to keep a healthy pregnancy to term. And especially in your cases where, you know, there was some detoxification issues, methylation issues, you know, with MTHFR, PMET. So, you know, all of these types of things where the body is already burdened and trying to detoxify, trying to do what it needs to do, and it can't. And then, of course, you know, you add nutritional deficiencies to it and electrolyte imbalances, things that basically, and obviously we found through treatment, and you start to be able to put pieces of that puzzle as to why this isn't actually working in place, and then you start to systematically work towards it. So it makes total sense. But I get the you know, I get the challenge of the challenge, you know, because it really is. It's a new way of approaching things. It's a new way of looking at things. But, you know, as we always say, and we've said this before, it's that whole idea that you can keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over and get the same result over and over, or you can do something radical and different. And obviously, in this case, completely proven. It's actually, in fact, this year marks our 20th year of doing this work. So, you know, I got a message the other day with one of my patients, you know, just saying hello with her 19-year-old baby that, and it's actually, I think it's in my timeline on Facebook right now. But you know, it's amazing. It's just, it works if people do the work. And that's really what it comes down to. And to be able to do that, first, you have to understand why, what's going on, what are the things that we can take into account. But, you know, Charles, the one thing that I will say to you, and I commend you for this, and I have always, and I think that you're incredibly, you know, once men understand, in fact, I think that people, you know, once people understand the reasons as to why these things are important, and they start to piece together, it's much easier to be able to be accepting and open-minded about a different way that you can help yourself and your biochemistry and your results at the end of the day. But, you know, we know that it's about actually taking charge and doing what it is that needs to be done. So it's amazing. So tell me the next bit of the story.
Yeah. Well, we completed the challenge, and I had already had an appointment set up with the clinic to have the assessment done. I knew that there was people who had just done the challenge and gotten pregnant, because there had been some people who had testified to that in the group at the time. But I didn't want to, I didn't want to wait anymore. And I didn't want to just kind of try something and then have it fail again, I guess. Because we had 5 miscarriages at this point, and we'd already been a few years into our journey, and I had read stories, and people were like, it took 10 years, it took 15 years, and I didn't want to be those people. And sometimes people come up to you and they say, oh, I know a lady and it took them 10 years, so have hope.
There you go. Thanks.
And when you're in the moment and in the thick of a journey and someone says that to you and you're at year 2 or 3, have hope for 10 years, for 15 years.
Yeah, I don't know. I still to this day don't know. I mean, you know, there's obviously patients in our clinic. I've written one of the stories in my book, which was a patient of ours who had been trying for close to 20 years. It was 19 years when she came to see me. Wow. And I don't even understand, like, I don't understand how somebody can hold on to hope for that amount of time, you know, honestly. I mean, I think my patients, you guys, are heroes in my eyes, truly, because it's incredible, you know, that somebody would hold on to that hope and that idea of having a baby for such a long period of time. I mean, as it turned out, she ended up having a beautiful baby girl and, you know, everything. And she was 44 by that stage. So, you know, it was beautiful. She conceived naturally, but it's like, whoa, I hear you completely. I don't think that personally I would have that level of devotion. I'd be like, you know what, this didn't happen. I'm just going to move on with my life, because I couldn't do 20 years. Yeah,
no. And I know people are well intentioned when they say those things, but it's not encouraging when you're in the middle. And so I knew that, like Charles and I talked about it, and I said that I want to do the program. I don't want to just rely on doing the challenge. And so we set up that assessment, and then we got accepted into the program. And I guess, like, I remember our first appointment with our assigned practitioner, and she's like, okay, here's your list of tests. And I think we were exhausted after.
Charles is like, oh my God, I've got to pay for all of these things now.
And just all of the things that we had to do, like, you know, you always talk about doing the work, right? And working hard. And it's like, yeah, you do work hard, because you have to follow up with your doctors, and chasing doctors. That's a hard job.
It is a hard job. It is. And, you know, look, I think that there's so many different pieces of that too. You know, one of the things that you've just mentioned that is really important, and I guess, you know, people kind of need to understand, is that it would be nice if anything in life, if you could just decide that you want it and you could sit down and it would just come to you. But I personally haven't had that experience ever. So, you know, my experience has been quite the contrary, that you need to really kind of like work very hard and chase almost, you know. And when you're trying to conceive, it's almost like you need to do it from a place of equanimity, you know, which is like calm in the face of chaos, because otherwise it's so easy to lose yourself on that journey, isn't it? It's so easy to just feel like, oh my God, this is overwhelming, and it's so challenging. And one of the things that you said, you know, about being accepted into the program, a lot of times people, you know, when we used to do the challenge for thousands and thousands of people, and I used to say the fact that, you know, people, it is by application, and I do assess every single case that comes in so that I can understand really three things. Can we help? Right? Is there work to be done? Is it work that we can do? And have we done it before in a similar set of circumstances? Because if I haven't got those three yeses, then I'm having that conversation with you, i.e. the patient, to go, hey, this is essentially what you need to know, and these are the things that you need to expect. And also, I want to be able to offer a place, I want to be able to know that if I'm offering a place in the program for a couple, that it's from the place that I truly believe that we can add value to that particular couple and to that situation. To me, it's not interesting to work with someone otherwise, because I don't want to be in a situation where, I'm taking people on just to take people on. That's not my value. That's not what I stand for. And so, I do take the time to really understand what's going on so that I can see, okay, well, is this going to be a good fit? Right. And the other thing that I look for, as you guys know, is that I look for couples who are willing to do the work. Like it's not the situation where, the woman can come in and, does all of the work and does all of the assessment. I think that the men need to suffer just as much.
Yeah.
No, but in all jokes aside, like I really truly believe that we know that fertility and the ability to conceive and the ability of taking a pregnancy to term and having a healthy baby requires two people. Then why would treatment be any different? So it's really, really quite an important part. But yeah. So tell me more about how it all went down. And Charles, if you have anything else to add, go ahead.
Yeah. So we had our first kind of intake interview, I guess. It went on it was longer than any doctor's appointment we had ever had in Canada. And I was kind of thrilled by that, that someone took the time to just really listen to our story, our concerns, our expectations, our goals, if you want to call it that. Our goal was to have a baby, a healthy one. And yeah, someone just who took the time with us and really heard us out and, offered to help us in whatever way that they can. Right. So I thought that was really cool. Most doctors they don't have the time of day for you. You're waiting in the waiting room or, in the Zoom waiting room for longer than you are in their office. Right. So I just at that point I just knew there was obviously something different about this program that we were about to get into. So
yeah, it was the first appointment and was just a lot to take in at first, and then she tells you, okay, so you guys have to stop trying to conceive. And there was no,
especially if you've had a miscarriage, and in your case 6.
But you got to be careful, and because we want to do all these tests, and we want to know what the results are before we go there. So she said, a minimum of 3 months. It could take longer, but we know it'll be a minimum of 3 months. And at that point, someone telling us to stop was like a breath of fresh air. Because you're in this cycle, you're just going, and you don't know when it's going to end. And you just get into that mindset, you hear things like, well, you're getting older. At this point, you've been married for 4 years. When you're going to have children? Don't wait too long, and all those kinds of things. And so you feel this urgency. And so when they say stop, and we stopped, we were just kind of like, oh,
wow. Life, but it's a really interesting thing, and it's a very important point that you bring up, because a lot of times people don't understand, especially when they feel like time is running out. It's that whole conversation of time is running out. The truth is that what I've seen over the last 20 years of doing this work is, one, if we don't actually give the body the opportunity to understand what is creating the end result that we're seeing, the outcome of infertility, miscarriage, whatever, we don't actually have the opportunity to address and fix those problems. So often when people come to us and say, oh, but I'm really on a timeline here, I need to start trying straight away. We're like, look, you need to understand that if we don't have results, if we don't understand what are the things that are contributing to this problem, because sometimes what people don't know is that they don't actually necessarily have a problem conceiving, they have an implantation failure issue, or they have a miscarriage issue that happens to coincide within when they were supposed to be getting a period. And so they never get a positive pregnancy test, but they don't realize that they're actually conceiving, they're just not carrying a healthy pregnancy to term. And this happens for the vast majority of people. So when people need to start treatment, we need to be able to say, okay, out of all of the 9 category reasons for recurrent miscarriage and implantation failure, and there are lots of things, and I've written about it in Fertility Breakthrough, the book, which by the way is available on Spotify now. I'm so excited. Last week it came out and it's available free on Spotify. But if we don't address those 9 different categories by systematically and methodically understanding what are the issues that are getting in the way, we end up with a situation where we just get more of the same result, and it just keeps going around in circles. And that, unfortunately, is where people then run out of time to have a baby. It's not in the moment of preparing and optimizing to have a baby that people run out of time. People run out of time doing more and more treatment that is ineffective, and they keep going on and on and on without doing the effective work that gets them the result and the outcome that they're looking for. So I'm so glad that you guys were like, okay, we've got to do this. And there was also that sense of like, oh, thank God. And, you did what we asked, for sure.
Yeah. And then during that time, like with the program, you guys provide a life coach and counseling. And that's just something that I guess it's mandatory. I don't know if it's mandatory or not, but
as part of the program, people have to go through the emotional support, and look, the reality is that most people welcome it, because by the time they come to us, they've been trying to conceive for such a long time, or like you have tried so many different things. So we do work very holistically, and the emotional support piece is definitely, a piece that we very strongly recommend.
Yeah.
That was the best part of the program, I thought. Like our emotional support person was so awesome. If we were kind of down in the dumps or feeling depressed, she brought us back up to cloud 9, and we honestly could not wait for our next session with her. She put some life back into us, and just she gave us some hope. The program was already doing that for us, giving us some hope, but she really, I mean, I don't know what other way to explain it, but she was incredible. She just made us feel human again,
Yeah. And it's the process, right? It's all of the pieces together combined, looking at all of the different aspects. Because if you think about it, you probably at some point started to also feel better, and then you start to have a bit more breathing space to be able to consider other aspects, and to be able, so it's that layering of the process. And I think that one of the biggest things that makes all of the difference, and certainly for the way that we work, we really focus on that, is that love aspect. It's that care, it's that making sure that people really feel supported, because to me that is the most important thing. Like if I and that's how I train my team, right? In fact, it's funny because I have this beautiful little frame that sits on my desk, that sits on every one of the team's desk, and when we get to work we get to see it, right? Which is the fact that we're here to guide and support. Yes, we're here to lead. Yes, we're here to crack the whip when we need to, and you of all people know that happens from time to time. But really what I want for my patients is for them to walk away from this process not only with a baby, but being the absolute best version of themselves, you know, and finding themselves and strength and resilience in different ways that they didn't even know were there before, you know. So it's wonderful to hear you, Charles. Actually, you never said this to me before, that was one of your favorite parts. And so it's great to be able to actually know that really made a difference to you.
Yeah. When we first started the program, it was just, we were overwhelmed again with another new challenge, you know, not it wasn't the same type of challenge, but it was like, here is a huge list of new tests that we're going to do, that some of them are going to be repeats from your doctor in Canada. Some of them are going to be totally new. Some of them you've never even heard of, you know. Some of them are not done in your country, so you're going to have to send blood work,
samples,
you know,
and,
samples elsewhere and things like that. And again, we were just like, okay, this is so awesome. You know, we're going to get some real answers here. We're going to find out some things about us. And we did. We absolutely got some answers, but there were, you know, we had to make some major changes in our lifestyle. There were a couple times where we dreaded that call with
like,
our
oh my God.
practitioner, and then after that, you know, we just started getting excited. You know, we loved talking to her. We looked forward to talking to, you know, our practitioner, and because she was going to give us answers, you know, every time, whether they were good or bad. We were getting some answers, and
it's clarity,
we
isn't it? Absolutely. I think that you've hit the nail on the head. It's, you know, sometimes as humans, we get to a point where we just need clarity. We just need to know where do we stand, right? What needs to happen in order for this to change? And you know, it's so important. And again, that's part of, you know, very much the philosophy that I have, is like, I just want to get to the bottom of understanding what's going on. Like, I want the facts, right? And being able to really get that clarity is what makes all of the difference, you know. So absolutely. So tell me then, what transpired next?
So after I guess we had our conception preparation phase, we got the green light from our practitioner to start trying to conceive. And to say, like, we were excited, but we were so nervous because we felt like we had this time of healing in this bubble, and we were just able to really enjoy life again. And we had done so much work, like, I guess emotionally and mentally, you know, and as well as physically. But we got the green light, and so we were excited, but we were nervous. And we started trying, and it took a little bit longer than I think we thought. And but I think there was still some mental, emotional things that we had to work through. And we did get, I remember it was July, I guess, of 2019, and we did get a positive. And we were excited, but a little like apprehensive, because you just don't know. And then a few days after that positive, I got my cycle, and so I miscarried. It was very early, and I remember emailing the practitioner to let her know, and she said okay, and she asked some questions and things like that. And so we were a little disappointed. We were kind of like, okay, but didn't know, you know, what to expect. And so we did get on the phone with her, and on a video call, and she said, okay, I really recommend doing the last test, which was the NK cells test. And we had kind of been putting it off because it's expensive. one of the
And
most.
this is the thing, and actually I will just interject here for one little moment, right? Because this is part of the situation. It's kind of like, if we don't know all of the things that we need to know, we can't address those issues, right? But sometimes finances will definitely play a role. It's like, people sometimes have to stage or stagger the tests that they do, or, kind of go, well, we know we kind of probably should, but let's see how it goes before we take that step and that extra expense, because it is expensive. It's a couple of $1,000 plus, and so then if you have to have treatment, it increases the cost of it again. But then we get to a point like you experience, it's like, okay, you know what? We have to go all in, because otherwise we're just going to keep going and doing more of this. And as it turned out, I actually gave this one away earlier, that we found out that there were natural killer cells, and of course, Th1 and Th2 imbalances, which tells me that the immune system is overreacting. And this is part of the reason as to why a miscarriage would have occurred in that situation. There were factors for both of you, that kind of linked to miscarriage, and that's what we needed to address. But definitely, that point that you've just made, which is like, okay, we finally decided that we were going to do the testing. Sometimes I almost kind of say to people, you know what? It's better that you just kind of like cry once, pay once, cry once, As one of my mentors says, it's like pay once, cry once, and get on with it. Then you stage it. But, sometimes we need that kind of, that extra push to go, okay, really need to get this done.
Yeah. So we got it done to come back and elevated. So she explained to us what that meant. And then we had to find treatment for that here in Canada. And I wasn't sure if we would be able to. And there was one clinic that offered treatment, which was about an 1.5-hour drive. So I had to go for intralipid therapy, and that was about an 1.5 hours. The treatment, and there was no side effects or anything like that. It was all natural, and I would drive up and drive back, and it was recommended that we do that once a month while we were trying to conceive, and then if we got pregnant, we would continue that treatment until 20 weeks. And so it took a little bit longer, but not that long, because it was the end of October, and Charles always had a way of knowing when I was pregnant. Like at this point, I always knew when I was pregnant, even before I tested. And
kind of like the way a husband knows that his wife is about to get her cycle, right?
Yeah, it's like, oh, there's something different going on here.
Yeah, and he knew, and I was just like, well, I'm not testing. I said,
I don't want to know.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to know. Yeah, I said, I'm not testing. And it had been a few days, and I messaged our practitioner, and I said, I'm late. I think I'm pregnant, but I'm not really sure. So I don't know. Should I test? She's like, go get a pregnancy test.
Yes. Yes, we should test.
And so I tested, and it back positive, and I can't remember our emotions exactly in that moment. I think they were somewhat excited, because after having gone through so many miscarriages, it's not the same when you get a positive, because there's so many questions, right? That so many things can happen. So we were excited, but cautious as well, cautiously excited. And Charles had to go away for work. Like he left like 3 days after that. He was gone. That was at the end of October, and he was gone for most of November. And I was so sick. And I'd never been sick before. And
there was a few major things leading up to this, though, that we should probably address. Like, no, like things that in the program they found, for instance, like high levels of lead in my system.
That's right. We had to chelate, had to treat. No, absolutely.
I believe it was from where I grew up in Canada, in Southern Ontario. There's all the water mains are lead there in the older districts.
Wow.
So I want to say that's where the lead came from. There was some things with Sari's iron. Like we chased low iron in Sari for, it felt like ever. The doctor, at one point she did get iron infusions, but then it got her up to a certain level, and the doctor, she was at an 11 where they called 9 anemic, but
Yeah.
A healthy person would be, in that 60 to 80 range. So because she wasn't at that extremely low, even though she was, they wouldn't do anything for her, right?
Yeah.
So no matter what we did, we couldn't get her iron levels up, like through iron pills or liquid iron or anything like that. Even the infusions didn't last long. So the program looked into that. They searched even further, like, why isn't this happening? Like, why can't you get your iron levels up? So
because you see, it's so important. Testing. Yeah, absolutely. Because one of the things that's so vital, a lot of times people don't realize or don't understand the vital, critical importance of a healthy body being a fertile body, and a body that's able to take a healthy pregnancy to term. Because even though, it's as I talk about the minor factors, we had NK cells, natural killer cells. We had, TH1, TH2, we had high homocysteine, we had, there was all these factors that were, around. We had low copper, we had nutritional deficiencies, we had all of these. They all contribute to the end result. They're all part of that biochemical chain reaction. So absolutely, in order to be able to address that outcome that we're seeing, we have to be able to address all of the different factors that are happening for both of you. Because, for example, with lead, and this as an interjection, as we talk about in the fertility challenge, the importance of a water filter and a good quality water filter.
Yeah. So
vital, because you don't know what your pipes are doing. You need to make sure that you're cooking with filtered water, that you're washing your fruits and vegetables with filtered water, that you're, making tea with filtered water. Boiling water does not remove toxins. So, and a lot of the times people don't understand these things, and because they don't understand it, they keep doing more of the same. And of course, they keep getting more of the same result, so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, it's that diagram that I often share with you guys. It's that whole idea that, of course, we want the baby, we want to be up here, but if we keep going around in circles, most people actually run out of time here. And so if we don't address the issues that are happening around that path or around on the way, we end up more or less with more of the same, as we go along.
Yeah.
But you guys did good.
Yeah, there was some serious investigative work, on your part for us, that we were amazed at just the level. Just at the level that you guys work to get us some answers and find us some problems that we can fix. And it was all within reach. It wasn't outrageous that it wasn't some outrageous and outlandish just conspiracy theory on why we're having miscarriages or things like that. It was pure facts, and
the issue is that you just have to be so systematic and methodical about understanding those things. I often talk to people about, because people ask me, they come to the fertility challenge or they come to do something and they say to me, "Oh, Gabriela, can you tell me what supplements I should take to improve my fertility?" I'm like, really? And the reason is because, as you guys know, but before you have your first appointment, in the clinic, we've already spent about 9 hours of work on your case, building tables of correlation, understanding what are the gaps, where are the places of opportunity, where are the things that we need to address in order to be able to optimize and really change this situation. We don't just go, "Oh yeah, let's just try these things and hope for the best." We're like very systematic, very methodical in making sure that we leave nothing to chance and no stone unturned. You know, like we want to tick, we have processes and protocols in place to make sure that for every single couple, we tick boxes and go, have we checked this? Have we checked this? Have we checked this? Have we done this? Have we addressed this? And then that we're coming back to that on a consistent basis until we actually see change and see result. Because if we're not seeing biochemical change, we're not going to get an end result. You know, and we see that for our patients, it depends obviously on how long they've been trying to conceive and what else is going on. But we know that it takes between 16 to 36 months of beginning the process in the program to take home a baby. You know, we just know. And we know that it takes approximately about 6 months on average for us to start to see biochemical change, where we're like, yep, we are convinced this is going in the right direction. You know, because why? That's just the body. That's just biology. We can't hack biology. You know, as much as we wish that we could, IVF in the end result that we're dealing with, IVF is really only addressing it from here. And the biochemical chain reaction goes all the way up to here somewhere. And how do we actually address that issue if we're not really understanding what are we dealing with and what do we need to do about it? So yeah. Those are all parts of the process for sure.
Yeah,
it's
I know.
it's a major, like, you know, everyone's environment is different. So you have, everyone is dealing with different environmental factors and things like that. So, you know, it's not just a cut and dry thing where you say, okay, this worked for the last person and 10 people before that, so take this, this, and this, because like you said, everyone's different. Everyone's biology makeup is different, and their environmental factors are different. You know, you go through that questionnaire at the beginning of the program, 50 pages or whatever, 50-page questionnaire.
People love that piece.
So we did it 4 times because
you did it 4 times, Charles.
Yeah.
Sari only needed to do it twice.
Yeah, because I kept sending a corrupt file to Sari and
No.
But you just, everyone is different, and you know what, someone dealing with low iron or another issue in their body, someone else might not be dealing with that, right? So it's amazing how much of it's just a one-on-one approach with your practitioner and the couple, right? You know, I never once heard them say, like I said, this worked for someone else, so we're gonna try that. It's we need to test you for this, and we're gonna evaluate those tests, and then we'll address it. And I just thought that was amazing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's a science, right? We need, if we take the time, biology leaves clues. And so, you know, we understand enough. And sometimes, of course, you know, there still needs to be other pieces that need to be added to the equation. But it's really about understanding what are the problems that we're dealing with. You know, when was the last time that you solved the problem you didn't know you had? It applies to fertility just as much as it applies to anything else. I mean, if you think about your work, for example, you don't go about it in a willy-nilly kind of like, oh yeah, let's just, you know, give this a go today, whatever it is that you're doing. I doubt that your bosses would be very happy with you if you did that. And I doubt that you would get a very good result at the end of the day if you did that, right? But how is it that, but how is it that with, you know, in terms of fertility, we expect that that's going to be an acceptable approach, or that we can just use a one size fits all and just, you know, paint it as whatever it is and it's just going to be fine? The truth is that it isn't. I always talk about this, the fact that you can line up 10 couples with the same problem and you will have 10 different ways of addressing those couples. You know, you can look at poor sperm morphology, motility count. You can look at, you know, ovarian reserve issues and egg quality issues. Same diagnosis, 10 different ways of addressing it. I guarantee it every time it happens. Because the way that something affects one person is different to how it affects another person. And of course, then we end up having to do things differently. And if we don't take the time to understand it, it doesn't really get us very far, right? So, but you guys then obviously were at a point where the pregnancy kind of stuck around.
Yeah.
And what happened next, we kind of know. We had a bit of a spoiler alert before.
Yeah, no,
But
yeah, Charles left, and I say he left me in agony because I was so sick, and I wasn't telling anybody. We just didn't know, and we were just like, well, we'll just keep it between us. And so I didn't have any support to, come help me or anything. And I remember I was teaching, and I would be on the couch, and I would just be like, okay, I gotta go teach now. And so I'd have the course, and for me it was lemonade. That was just what made me feel good. So I found some relatively healthy lemon flavored drink I could drink, and that's what helped me. But I remember I had to take some sick days because there were some days where I couldn't. I was throwing up in the bathroom before I'm trying to leave. Like, no, I can't do this. Like, I look ill. And
I look like I'm dying.
yeah, and one of the things that our practitioner had recommended was a laparoscopy. And in Canada, you get on a list and you wait. And so we'd gotten on the list at the beginning of the year, and December, I think it was 2nd, they called me and said, good news, you're going in for laparoscopy. And it's going to be scheduled for January. So what day works? We'll give you some dates and you tell us what day works. And I was like, okay. I said, this is great. But I said, I'm pregnant. And they're like, oh, so you don't need it. And I'm like, well, I don't want to lose my place. I said, you need to send me for an ultrasound because you know if this pregnancy is good. That's what I said. And our practitioner had recommended doing some things like testing or HCG levels. But I had said no to that because I'd done that in the past and it had just stressed me out. And I just said, I'm just trying not to stress. I'm just taking a really like low key. This pregnancy is successful, then it's successful. If it isn't, I've been there before. I don't need to know. And she was like, okay. And I kind of went a little, I think, AWOL on her because I was just like,
I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Yes, yeah. I was just like, I'm, I've got an appointment next month. We'll just whatever, right?
Talk then. Bye.
And so I said to the clinic when they called for the laparoscopy, I said, you need to send me for an ultrasound ASAP because I need to know. And so they got me in a few days later, and Charles was home. He had just gotten home a couple days before that. And we went in for the ultrasound, and there was, well, the tech was like, oh, let's get this up here. And, we're waiting, like holding our breath. We're just like, and so nervous. And the tech is like, oh, look, there's the heartbeat. You can see it fluttering. And we're just like, what? We're like, oh, there's a heartbeat? She's like, yeah, there it is, and she's like pointing, she's using the little arrow to point to like, oh, the anatomy that you can see at that point. And we're just shocked. We're looking at each other, and she's asking us, oh, is this your first pregnancy? Is this the first baby? And that kind of stuff. And we're like, yeah, right. And she kept talking, and I think at that point we just start crying. Like we're an absolute mess.
Yeah. We didn't really hear, she kept talking and we didn't hear anything she said. We were just so awestruck, and it was just a really amazing feeling.
So beautiful. It's that's one of the things that I love when not only we get couples to this point, but just, as the pregnancy progresses, and obviously for you, everything went so beautifully and, kind of pretty uneventful, really. Had the most beautiful shoot. I was following that, looking, oh my God, look at Sari, how beautiful she looks. It was gorgeous. In fact, I think that your pregnant photo, or one of your pregnant photos, is in our baby gallery. And you just looked so radiant. Yeah, no, you were absolutely beautiful. So it was just so nice, to be able to get to be a little part of your family. This is one of the things that I say to patients all the time. I mean, the reason that we need to be able to get along and we need to be able to work well together as a team, and that you guys need to be able to work well together as a team, is that we tend to be in people's lives for a very long time. you know, like the rest of their life kind of long time. You know, I still have patients, like I said, who basically message me to this day. Like the 19-year-old that I've got on sitting on my timeline right now is basically that. It's that we stay in touch and we connect. And I love, you know, like last year, Kate, the lady who's the mum of this 19-year-old, she goes, Gabriela, I just wanted to send you a message and say thank you because, you know, Kira got into university, she got, you know, her driver's license and she's 18. And I'm like thinking, can we just stop time now? This is good.
Yeah.
I'm like, no more. Let's all the babies that can come after this, great. But like, I can freeze here now. Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, look, guys, thank you so much for sharing your beautiful story, for telling us. You know, I think that I've lost track of the comments, but I know that people were just loving hearing your story, and we're so grateful for you guys sharing and letting us know, you know, that there is hope and that there is more you can do when you take charge of your situation or of your circumstances and, you know, do whatever it is that you need to do to get your results. So thank you for sharing that. Is there anything else that you guys would like to share? And for the people watching on, you know, let me know if you would like me to do another one of these sessions, you know, with another couple through the program. If this was useful for you, if it was helpful and if you'd like more, let me know. We don't have to do it, but if you guys feel that this is something that would be valuable and that you would like, then, you know, something that we can definitely do. And, you know, for you guys, Sari and Charles, you know, is there any last words of wisdom or things that you would like to leave your message with?
I guess don't
yeah, go ahead.
And don't second guess your, if you feel drawn and you want to go to the program, just do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's you know, when we can help, I think that that's one of the biggest things. You know, when we can help, it's something that I'm always privileged and delighted to do, and you know, it's beautiful. So thank you for sharing that. Charles, anything you want to share? Anything you want to say? Any last words?
I guess there's just two real major things that I took away from both the challenge and the program, and one of them is someone just put it perfectly as just it's only for a season. You know, it's hard, it's not easy, it's a challenge, and everything is, you know, it can be heartbreaking and it can be an emotional roller coaster, and you know, the healthy eating and committing to exercise and supplement intake and things like that is hard. But you know, if you have that goal, then it's major to do, to just take part in it, right? And like that person said, it's only for a season. You know, once you get to your goal, more than likely you're gonna continue on with your new lifestyle of healthy eating, exercising, supplements and things like that, and just being a better version of yourself. And then the other thing that just really stuck with me is, you guys have always said, you know, the babies that come from your program are some of the healthiest and often have some of the healthiest pregnancies. And I think we can attest to that and say that that's true with our baby. You know, she's absolutely perfect, zero health concerns. And there's quite a few new babies around us in our circle that, you know, I guess we're kind of biased, but she's just different. You know, there's just things about her are just, her skin is really healthy. You know, she's not dealing with things like that. And I'm not going to say that it's not going to happen to people on the program or whatever, but I think just her growth and things like that are because of the changes that we made in our lifestyle, right? With our, and took our health by the horns, right?
And that's the thing, isn't it? It's the fact that by 8 weeks gestation, a baby's health blueprint is set for the rest of their life. So it's not, the time to optimize a child's health is not when you get a positive pregnancy test, which is what a lot of people think. The time to optimize a child's health is in the months preceding a conception attempt, even before a pregnancy is set. And of course, as we've mentioned several times throughout this conversation today, it's a healthy body is a fertile body, and 2 prospective parents are really required for the outcome that we're looking to create, which is the healthiest possible baby. So everything that you say, Charles, is right on the mark. I think that there's a lot to be taken from that example. So thank you. And guys, again, I got to meet Sybil for the first time today, face to face. Is she sleeping now?
She is.
Yeah, she's like, it's lovely. So thank you once more for your kindness and for, agreeing to come and share your story. And, people are just like so grateful. They feel so much hope from, what you've shared with us today. So thank you so much. I love you guys. I will talk to you soon and we'll go from there. And Charles, don't worry, I've got your back on baby number 2. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I told Sari, let's hold off. Let's just, just take a little bit of a time here. Let's not go straight into this. There's no rush. So, all right. Thank you guys.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. Big love. Bye for now.